are all information transmitters. Information enters through our senses, like our ears and our eyes, and exits through our expressions, like our voices, our art, our writing, and our movements. All of this information going through us creates a living phenomenon called culture. In order for culture to stay alive, we have to be open, transmitting and receiving information. Here I have depicted culture as moving in a line, but really culture is a network, like a neural network. And we are neurons in a great mind. In an individual mind, information flows from neuron to produce a bigger phenomenon called thought, which in turn creates an even greater phenomenon called mind. In the great mind, information flows from person to produce art, which in turn creates culture. It's through this flow that culture stays alive and we stay connected to each other. Ideas flow in and they flow out, and they change a little as they go along. That's called evolution, progress, or innovation. But thanks to copyright, we live in a world where some information goes in but cannot legally come out. Often I hear people engaged in creative pursuits ask, "Am I allowed to use this? I don't want to get in trouble." Trouble may include lawsuits, huge fines, and even jail. Trouble means violence. The threat of trouble dictates our choices about what we express. Copyright activates our internal sensors. The question, "Am I allowed to use this?" indicates the asker has surrendered internal authority to lawyers, legislators, and corporations. Whenever we censor our expression, we close a little more, and information flows a little less. The less information flows, the more it stagnates. Evolution, progress, and innovation stall. This phenomenon is called permission culture. When you shut down neurons to prevent them from transmitting signals, we call that brain damage. Therefore, copyright is brain damage. It's brain damage in the great mind and in the individual mind. It's the individual mind, my individual mind, that I can do something about. I have asked myself, did I ever consent to letting permission culture into my brain? Why am I complying with censorship? How much choice do I really have about what information goes in and comes out of me? The answer is I have some choice regarding what I expose myself to and what I express, but not total control. I can choose whether to watch mainstream media, for example, and I can choose what information to pass along. But to be in the world and to be open means all kinds of things can and do get in that are beyond my control. I don't get to choose what goes in based on its copyright status. In fact, proprietary images and sounds are the most aggressively rammed into our heads. For example, okay, this is a little song.
This time of the year, I don't know if there'll be snow, but have a cup of cheer.
Right, I don't know if you've ever heard that. I was gonna sing it for you. Fortunately, you missed that. But the point is that I hate Christmas music, but because I live in the United States and need to leave the house for food and social necessities, even in the months of November and December, I can't not hear it. It goes right into my ear holes and into my brain, where it plays over and over ad nauseum. I promise you it plays over and over in there. Here are some of the corporations I could get in trouble with for showing and singing that song in public. I wasn't consulted by them before having this blasted into my head as a child, so I didn't ask their permission to put this in my slideshow. Copyright is automatic, and there's no way to opt out. But you can add a license, granting some of the permissions copyright automatically takes away. But the same threat of violence behind copyright is behind alternative licenses too. Licenses actually reinforce the mechanism of copyright. Everyone still needs to seek permission, it's just that they get it a little more often. Licenses have the unfortunate effect of encouraging people to pay even more attention to copyright, which gives even more authority to that inner censor. And who let that censor into my head in the first place? Although I use free licenses and would appreciate meaningful copyright reform, licenses and laws aren't the solution. The solution is more and more people just ignoring copyright altogether. I want to be one of those people. A few years ago, I declared sovereignty over my own head. Freedom of speech begins at home. Censorship and trouble exist outside my head, and that's where they'll stay, outside my head. I'm not going to assist bad laws and media corporations by setting up an outpost for them in my own mind. I no longer favor or reject works based on their copyright status. Ideas aren't good or bad because of what licenses people slap on them. Now, I came to these ideas in 2008, and I formally freed my first feature film, Sita Sings the Blues, in early 2009. I put the work out for free, and people shared it. The more people saw it, the more people became fans. If, say, 1 in 10 fans sent me a donation, but free sharing enabled 20 times more people to see the film than conventional centralized distribution, I came out ahead. Furthermore, direct donations deliver almost all the money spent to the artist, while conventional distribution funnels only a tiny percentage to the artist, if any. Yes. I also sold film-related merchandise through the Question Copyright Store, a project set up specifically to prove copy restrictions were not necessary for merchandise. The film, a non-scarce good, was free. The merchandise, scarce goods, was not. Not only is culture not scarce, its value actually increases the more it's shared and used. Culture is not merely non-rivalrous, but anti-rivalrous. It is in my economic best interest to have the film seen, copied, and shared as much as possible. The more the content is shared, the more people donate and buy containers, like books, DVDs, hard drives, t-shirts, and posters. I call merchandise containers because they contain the content. Containers are scarce goods, they are property, they are rivalrous, all the things content is not. The free culture business model is to let the content flow freely and sell the containers. In other words, use the unlimited resource to sell the limited resource. And this worked great. A whole new business model that could benefit independent artists like me. Remember, this was in 2009. The internet made it possible. It depended on freedom, free sharing, free speech, and a free internet. That was in 2009, when the internet, as we knew it, still held the promise of freedom. The internet routed around censorship. Technically, the internet still does. But today, most of us experience the internet not as servers and software, but as cultural discourse mediated through applications that lie atop the internet, just as authoritarian states lie atop an otherwise indifferent planet. Today, most discourse takes place on applications that have censorship built in by design. I am, of course, talking about social media. In the olden days of the free internet, if you didn't like some expression, and there was plenty to dislike, you could block it. That is, you could avoid seeing it yourself, but you couldn't ban it. No one had the power to censor, though many desired it. In Usenet groups, you simply blocked users you didn't like, meaning you put them on a list so that you wouldn't see what they wrote. You didn't censor others because you couldn't. Freedom was built in, an unbreachable limit. All but the most enlightened among us want to shut up bad people for good. Our motives may be excellent. We want to protect others, for example. We want social justice. We want to stop hate speech. It turns out hate speech is defined as any speech you hate. And so the unfree, proprietary, surveillance capitalist Facebook and Twitter gave us what we wanted: censorship. They offered options beyond blocking. They suggested reporting. This, by the way, is what you'll see on Facebook on any post. With sufficient reporting, they moved to banning. Here's a typical Facebook ban I'm familiar with, since I screen captured this the last time I was banned by Facebook. And here is a typical Twitter ban. Meghan Murphy has actually been permanently banned from Twitter, and she is now suing Twitter. She is a journalist whose website is called feministcurrent.com. I suggest you check it out. Free as in freedom social media alternatives have been developed, but none could compete because the greatest numbers continued to use Facebook. Facebook achieved critical mass, and few achieved the escape velocity necessary to resist its pull. How many people here are aware that Facebook's business model is based on surveillance, selling your data to the highest bidder and manipulating your behavior? Who here knows that about Facebook? Probably everyone, right? Okay. How many of you use Facebook or Facebook's other apps like Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, or Twitter, or other unfree social media platforms? Right. We use these platforms because social media is addictive as hell. Social media needs to keep users. The winning platforms are the most addictive. Users must be so engaged they can't turn away, even as they intellectually know they are being surveilled, manipulated, and exploited. To keep us hooked, social media must engage us emotionally. Self-righteous anger is a particularly exploitable emotion. It keeps users engaged and motivates us to take pseudo-actions like reporting other users, posting self-righteous memes, and creating closed Facebook groups, thus spending more time on Facebook. Facebook loves closed and secret groups, which give the illusion of privacy while surveilling everything. Self-righteous anger is great for Facebook's bottom line, and Twitter and YouTube's. Social media loves self-righteous anger. Social media loves mobs, too, because they are highly emotional and thus engaged. Internet mobs are dependent on social media, making their constituents excellent, easy to surveil, exploitable, and marketable data sources. People are at their most vulnerable in highly emotional states. If you feel excited, agitated, or angry on social media, you are being exploited. By now, it should be clear that platforms that encourage reporting, banning, and mobbing aren't good for society or what's left of democracy. Agitating volatile individuals and giving them tools to report their neighbors works great in authoritarian regimes, which social media have become, especially Facebook and Twitter. You couldn't design a more dangerous platform. Unfree social media actually inhibits free sharing, especially of controversial works. This is because every message you send on social media is also a signal of group affiliation, loyalty, and ideology. Remember this slide from before? I said, copyright activates our internal censors. Well, now you're censoring yourself out of fear your so-called friends will disapprove, ostracize, or report you. In many ways, unfree social media achieves even worse repression than copyright. Many of us can self-righteously oppose state authority, but we would never risk the judgment of our friends and neighbors or subject ourselves to their Facebook-enhanced disapproval or mob-like wrath. So how does free culture fit into all of this? Not very well. To begin with, Facebook and YouTube have automated copyright censoring systems that recognize no fair use whatsoever. So, as platforms for hosting my own free cultural works, they are a lost cause from the start. Nonetheless, social media is the main way cultural works are discovered and shared today. This is not the free internet of 2008. Individuals like me can simply leave Facebook, but that doesn't solve the problem. The mass of online humanity still conducts most of its discourse on social media, and network effects bar free alternatives. My latest film, Seder-Masochism, has been banned and blacklisted, not due to copyright concerns, ironically, but because I have stated on social media the controversial view that women don't have penises. My only consolation is, if I relied on copyright and conventional distribution, it would be even worse. Well, there is one other consolation. We have built an authoritarian regime online, but we still have our voices, eyes, and ears. Culture continues to exist offline, even as social media influences insanity in the real world. Right now, the best way to share culture is face-to-face. Talk to people in real life as much as you can. Make a phone call instead of a text. Use your body and all of its senses. Try writing on paper instead of typing. Take your eyes off the screen. In spite of everything, culture is free by nature, and so are we. Just kidding, we're all doomed. That's it.